Welcome back to the IDP Plus podcast and my part 2 early redraft linebacker rankings. I got 25 through 48 ready on the list for you. If you missed part 1 through 24, I have the video at the end screen. So when this video is done, you can click right on it and go back and catch what you missed. Without further ado, here's the best of the rest. My linebackers 25 through 48 for your upcoming 2025 fantasy seasons. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see the stats, what I'm working with here for all you viewers out there. This is it was a loaded top 24. We're going to hit some good names here coming off right at the 25 through 32 section. I still think there's a lot of guys in here that could finish in the top 24. Let me know what you think in the comments. We're going to start it off right at the top of the list. I know a lot of people were probably wondering where he was in that first video, but he did not make an appearance. He is a rookie at 25. Top of the list here for part 2, I have Carson Schwesinger for the Cleveland Browns, 22 years old, obviously rookie. We don't know much about him yet as far as the NFL, but in college last year for UCLA, he had 12 games played. He averaged an insane 11.3 tackles per game, finished with 136 tackles. 9 out of 12, 3/4 of those games were double-digit tackle games. 10 tackles for loss, a sack, 2 picks, forced fumble, 3 pass defense, you name it. Carson Schwesinger did it. So my big thing about Carson Schwesinger is, I'm looking at the opportunity he has. Of course, in IDP, we talk about opportunity is key. And Carson Schwesinger really didn't have an opportunity in college until he was a senior. And then he was a standout senior at UCLA, led the Big Ten in tackles overall. So, this is a guy that when he gets an opportunity, seemingly he runs with it. He doesn't look back, and that's what we're hoping for here. If you have him in Dynasty, you're very excited. I see some rankings in Dynasty where he's top 5, top 8. That's too rich for me, absolutely. But let's stay modest here. 25 is a good spot. We got him ahead of some pretty good vets here. Going back to Schwesinger, this is a bad Cleveland team, and that's what you love for linebackers. Hopefully they're on the field an awful lot. They're going to be, we're assuming, down in games, so that means they're going to get the ball run down their throat. So great opportunity for Carson Schwesinger to clean up here. I'm not worried about Diabate. I'm not worried about Hicks, Winston Reed, Jerome Baker, these guys. My assumption is Jordan Hicks is going to be the running mate with Carson Schwesinger here, and I'm not afraid of that at all. I mean, actually, Jordan Hicks last year, that was somebody who was one of my sleepers who I thought was going to have a solid year. Age may have caught up to him, but bottom line, only 6.5 tackles per game. So let's hope, Jordan Brooks. I wish he would start next to Schwesinger. He's not going to take many tackles away. Obviously was dealing with some health injuries too. So we'll see who Hicks is this year, but we think we know who Schwesinger is. I think he's an absolute, right off the bat, solid linebacker too, with big upside. Yeah, you could probably make a case for him to slide up in my top 20, top 18, but check out part 1. There's guys on there that I really have high hopes for. I think the fact that we haven't seen Schwesinger yet, this is a fair spot for him, especially when we have him above a guy like number 26, Jewell. Jewell, we all know the outlaw by now. He's 30 years old. He's a vet, as vetted as they get, with a great nickname. Only played 12 games last year, and that's his bugaboo. Misses quite a bit of time over the seasons that he's played, but did have a nice a little bit over 8 tackles a game, 8.1 for a combined 97 tackles, and that was just in 12 games. So if he would have stayed on pace, he would have finished with 137 tackles at 8.1 tackles a game. If he played the full 17, Lord knows that's the tough thing about Jewell. Who knows if he ever will? But if he does this year, he's going to definitely pay dividends and be a value pick here, because 26 is low for him. I've seen him go in the top 20 in people's rankings, and I understand that. But let's just pump the brakes and look at the potential that he's missed on. He's had 116 potential games in his career in 7 seasons. He's only played 90 of them, so he's missing 26 out of 116. That's just what under. Sorry, that is just under a quarter, I believe, if the math is mathing. So yeah, nonetheless, he's missed a big chunk of his NFL career, and when you do that, you really can't give us the full healthy season to be that LB1 that we expect you to. Now, Josey, Jewell, everything else makes sense here to rank him higher. The double digit tackle games, 5 out of 12. That's almost half of them. So very impressive there. That's excellent. Checks the bill. 7 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. Very impressive. An interception, no forced fumbles, and 7 pass defense. And going back to that sack, how I have it highlighted here in green, 3.5 sacks for Josey Jewell. That is not an aberration. Josey Jewell has actually had the last 3 seasons 9 sacks, so he's averaging over the last 3 years 3 sacks a season. So Josey Jewell, if he can stay healthy, let's say 15 games. Let's be real here. Let's not count on 17. Let's take 12 tackles away from that 137. He's going to leave us with 125 this year, hopefully with those 3 sacks and a couple more splash plays. So Josey Jewell, I get it. If he ever played 17, I'm sure he's a walking bomb. He would probably be a top, at least top 18, maybe even top 12 linebacker. But I just don't know that that's going to happen. So Carson Schwesinger, I'd rather take his upside at this point than sit around and wait for Jewell. I think last year was really the best time to get him. I don't know if things could get better at a game, game per game breakdown. Josey Jewell was terrific last year. Not a lot of letdowns for us in fantasy. And of course, when you pair the 8-10 tackles a game in there with a couple sacks, a couple splash plays, it's just icing on top. So Josey Jewell, fine LB2 here. Nothing wrong about him, and could be a great value pick if he stays healthy. I think the performance will be there. So let's just hope Josey Jewell can stay healthy and reap the benefits for us. Moving on to 27, Quincey Williams. This is a guy who is kind of an afterthought right now in IDP community. Don't really hear much about him. Of course, all the hype is on Jamie Sherwood, which maybe had an attribution to Quincey's down year. We'll call it a down year. He still had 116 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, which is tremendous for a linebacker. 2 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, which is a career high for Quincey, and also 14 tackles for loss is a career high for Quincey as well. So I think that if we're calling this a down year, 116 tackles with all this splash involved, then I think this is definitely selling him short here at 27. But once again, you go in that top 25 list, there is just flooded with big upside linebackers this year. I love, this is a great year for IDP. We're happy about it. It's a good problem to have. A lot of studs, and Quincey Williams is still a stud to me, only 28 years old. Yeah, the tackle average was dipping a little bit last year, 6.8 tackles a game only. That's kind of a concerning number, but we're not talking about a guy who's going to go a TJ Edwards down year where he had 120 some and he's used to 160. Quincey Williams, if he can get us, his fine potential is about 130 tackles, maybe a little bit north of that. And I think easily he can return to those numbers. So everything else is there. Let's just get some more tackles for Quincey. And I think he could be a great value pick for your IDP drafts coming up this season. Moving on to 28. When have you ever seen Patrick Queen this low? It's like, I'm selling everything as a flea market. I'm just selling everything for cheap right now. But no, Patrick Queen, let me make my case here. 25 years old, still has, a bunch of youth. We like that. Tackles per game was okay, decent for a middle range LB2. And that's frankly what I'm going to peg Patrick Queen as here. And it wasn't like he missed games. It wasn't like the snaps weren't there. He played 99.8% of snaps. I don't think it's going to get any better in Pittsburgh. If you've been rocking with me for a while, you've always heard, even though my hometown Steelers, I'll call a spade and say when is this Pittsburgh Steelers besides Schwesinger? You'd have to go really dig deep back in Devin Bush's rookie year. When have they really had IDP studded linebackers, let alone 2. It's hard to find 1 here. So, for me, coming out from Baltimore, we had these big hopes about Queen, and the sacks went down. He was having 2-3 sacks a year. Only finished with one this past year. I don't think that's going to change either. The quarterback hits, I believe, were the second lowest of his career, other than maybe his rookie year. So I think he only had 5 quarterback hits and 1 sack. It's not really an interception, type of player. It's not really, knocking around batted balls, even though he did have 7 pass defense, which is something to hang your hat on for a linebacker. We're here for the tackles with Patrick Queen, and quite frankly, it's not as good in Pittsburgh as it was being next to Roquan Smith. So he comes down on my board a little bit, and this is also somebody who doesn't really have that huge high tackle upside. Only 4 out of 17 games played were double-digit tackle markers. Keep in mind, he does have a lower tackle floor as well. He had 8 out of 17 games played under 8 tackles, which is a little bit concerning. So you're not getting the upside, and it's not really bankable. I'm not really seeing the reason why Patrick Queen is still considered a high upside LB2. I said it last year. I was hoping that he would break the mold in Pittsburgh, but I'm not going to double down this year. He's sliding down in my books. Comment if you got an opinion about it, but I'm in Pittsburgh, and I'll say it too. So moving on to number 29, this guy could go a lot higher in lists depending on how you see it. Definitely not dynasty lists, but we're talking redraft here. And I mean, I want to mention Demario Davis, 36 years old. We're talking about Bobby Wagner and Levante David, 34, 35 years old, like they're dirt. I mean, we got Demario Davis out here, 136 tackles, only missed 1 game, nice average of 8.5 tackles per game. This is a true seasoned vet. He had his career high this past year in 2024 with 136 tackles. It was a little bit cheap. His prior career high was 135, but nonetheless, he did it in 16 games. So you give him 17, he would have blew it out the water. Led all inside linebackers in sacks in 2013 with 6.5. Obviously, this past year, the sacks dipped a little bit to 2, but still, hey, he's going to get you some sacks. Actually, he's not. He's going to get you more than a few. 15 sacks over the last 3 years for Demario Davis. That's right. He's averaging 5 sacks over. I'm sorry, five sacks a year over the last 3 years. So Demario Davis, really strong player still. Not worried about Pete Warner. He's an afterthought to me. Demario is a guy who seemingly is a streamer in some leagues. How it'll play out with draft, depending on how deep your IDP is, but he's definitely worth more than that. And there's a couple games, especially earlier on last year, where you probably rostered him and you were thinking like, man, is he going to have the down year? Time is catching up. Started off slow, no doubt, but as the season got on, especially towards the end of the season, Demario Davis was who we knew all along. So I mean, again, Bobby Wagner, 34, Levante, 35. Demario Davis is really someone who's not talked about enough, but still 36 years old, you can still get it done. And I'm still rocking with Demario this low in the rankings. So this is still basically LB2 turning into LB3 territory. And I think Demario Davis, if you're in a position where you want to throw IDP like me, that's kind of what I do. I get all my offense. I'm going to send 100 trades. I'm going to load up on RB2s, WR2s, do that, and come back and get a guy like Demario Davis for cheap. Also know your league mates. If you're playing with a bunch of IDP vets, you're probably not going to get over on them like that, but still, everyone's looking at the age 36, waiting for the downfall, and Demario Davis shows no signs of it. So great value pick there. Moving on to 30, Quay Walker. I feel just something in my plums is wrong saying that he should be this low at 30, but Quay Walker, still 25 years old. Of course, missed a couple games again this season. He missed 4 in 2024, missed 3 in 2023. So you're looking at 7 missed games over the last 2 seasons. Not promising there, and that's a reason why his 5th-year option was not picked up. There still doesn't mean he's not going to play for the team. He's still a starting backer next to Edgerrin Cooper, who's getting all the hype there in Green Bay. And Quay Walker, don't write him off quite yet. This is somebody who can definitely put a high load of tackles, maybe 130. Optimistically, you're probably looking at bankably 120 tackles if he's going to, obviously become a starter, stay a starter, and play majority of games. I think 120 tackles and a couple sacks for Quay Walker is more than fair. 9 tackles for loss last year, 2.5 sacks, no picks, no forced fumbles. Did have 3 forced fumbles, I believe, his rookie year, so not a complete aberration there. And he also had 2 passes defense last year. Again, Edgerrin Cooper, rightfully so, is getting all the hype, and that's kind of that in the mix of how rich this year's class is at linebacker. This 2025 IDP, this list it's very rich to me. So Quay Walker, another guy, if you're kind of going like, zero linebacker, and then he kind of happens to be down here, especially in shallower leagues, this is a fine time to get him. I do think he's in for a bit of a rebound. Like I said, 120 tackles with 2 to 3 sacks, I think is fair. And don't forget, he had 2.5 sacks plus 18 tackles in 14 games played in 2023. Once again, 818 tackles and 2.5 sacks, similar line here, in just 14 games played. So let's see if he can get back to 15, 16, or 17 games played. I think Quay Walker is going to be a nice value here. Moving on to 31, another vet who, this is, a couple now in this section who's fallen in the rankings, but still young enough to, make the turnaround. Nick Bolton. I don't know anybody out there who's very high on him right now, but I see this both ways. So Nick Bolton, of course, he had a disappointing 2024 season. The biggest outlier to me is the ugliest number is this 6.6 tackles a game. That's not going to cut it. Not even in tackle heavy, no scoring will 6.6 tackles a game from your linebacker make you happy. And only combined for 106 tackles combined. Of course, 73 of those were solo, so that's kind of nice to see. The splits were nice, but overall, double-digit tackle games faltered, only 2 out of 16. Did have 11 tackles for loss. Did have 3 sacks, which is something to hang your hat on. An interception, forced fumble. So it seems like the splash plays are still there. Not surprising. I mean, Nick Bolton is the centerpiece of this, linebacking core. Really the only guy who's really man in the middle there. So, and also one downfall about him, he's often in pass coverage. So he's also a good defender. Maybe that means that the quarterback isn't really going to pick him out like a Cody Barton type of player. He's solid in coverage, so really they don't really throw his way. They know who he is and respect to his game, but that kind of hurts us in IDP. So Nick Bolton, if you're going to draft him this year, you're looking at hot and cold. 106 tackles, you're probably going to get more than that, but don't go chasing the 180 from just a few years ago. I don't see that coming back at all. And even when we look, if you ask me really why, I'm saying the 2024 was more believable than 21, 22 when he was going off. Well, 2023, this is 2 years ago now. Nick Bolton was pretty bad for IDP then. He only played 8 games, only had 60 tackles. So, under 8 tackles a game. That was certainly not the pace he was on when he was garnering 180 tackles. I don't know what's in the water there. Maybe it's the type of defense they play. But Nick Bolton, somebody who needs to be rostered, and I definitely do think, again, there is positive regression. I'm expecting about 115, 120 tackles, and that's generously. I'm sorry, not generously. That's conservative. I think he can definitely go more than that, but you're not getting 160, 180 tackles. I think that Nick Bolton is dead and gone. Is ship sailed. So definitely somebody who don't overpay for him. The name is going to maybe mislead a couple people, a couple owners out there to say, oh, he had a bad year. He'll get right. But this is kind of 2 years in a row now, and I don't think he's coming back. So Nick Bolton, kind of a bottom barrel LB3 as it stands right now. So I'm not too excited about him. But of course, can turn around. Still only 25 years old. Moving on to 32, and that is Germaine Pratt. Germaine Pratt, I'm kind of torn about this one. I wanted to put him higher. The caveat is we don't even know if he's going to start. I mean, I really do. In the back of my mind, I do think he's going to start for Vegas. They got Devin White there, Landon Roberts. Come on now, Germaine Pratt just balled out, 143 tackles. You signed him to a 1-year deal. Granted, it wasn't big money, so I don't think anything's guaranteed there. But when the dust settles, I think we all know who's going to be starting. I'm not worried if it's middle linebacker, weak side. I think Germaine Pratt is a banger time after time. We've kind of seen in spot starts earlier in his career. He's had those 12 tackle games, 8 tackles, back to back, and then all of a sudden he goes for 5. And it's like, oh, I got to drop him now, and he's not who I thought he was. Well, we were right the whole time. Last year, you got a full opportunity to put that, to the test, and, excellent results. 143 combined tackles, an average of 8.4. Very healthy there. 3 out of the 17 games were double digit, and that's okay because he was pretty consistent as it comes, really, as when we talk about a floor. He was only held under 8 tackles in 4 out of those 17 games. So yeah, you look at the double digits and it's like he's not breaking the mold. He's not having 8 or 9 double digit games, but when you get 8 or more for 13 out of 17 times, you're very consistent. And if you missed on part 1, I'll give you a spoiler. Logan Wilson, every game that he was playing in 2024, 8 or more tackles. So something was in the water there with with Cincinnati Bengals linebackers, and hopefully that translates to Vegas. Of course, Robert Spillane's not there, so he had a terrific year. I believe 158 tackles last year. Somebody's got to pick up the slack, and I think the front runner right now, even though he's the last one to arrive, is Germaine Pratt, and I don't even think it's close. So this is somebody who hopefully you're drafting early, and this guy's not on many people's minds because I do think come training camp time, there's going to be a lot of hype on him. And one more caveat about him, Germaine Pratt, we don't really think of him as a household name. However, last year, I do most of my leagues on Yahoo. I'm mostly playing in tackle-heavy leagues. He was actually, that nice career year he had for the Bengals, he was ranked 10th amongst all linebackers in scoring, large in part due to those tackles. So Germaine Pratt was a top 10 linebacker last year, depending on your scoring, maybe in your league too. So don't forget that. Don't discount it. I think he's going to have a great opportunity to double down on that this year. Moving on to 33, Jalen Carleys. So Jalen Carleys, I know a lot of people ask me questions. I've seen on other videos people ask questions about this guy, and last year it was kind of like the EJ. Maybe it's the EJ Speed effect of this year. I remember last year, come redraft time, and everyone, myself included, was very high on EJ Speed. We found out that 2 linebackers in Indy, the 2 inside linebackers can bang. Whether it was back to the Darius Leonard days, back to the Bobby Okereke. Didn't matter if it was Zaire Franklin came in and did it. So we thought, EJ Speed, he's good for it too. And he was. He had a solid year, left a bad taste in our mouths at the end there. I think injury kind of hurt him, but nonetheless, injury is hurting Carleys too here. Keep in mind, Carleys, as much as he is going to, looks like he's entrenched in that inside linebacker role next to Franklin, he is a little bit, I don't want to say frail, but he's a little bit smaller for a inside linebacker. Granted, that means he's going to be quicker. He was a converted safety. I believe he went to Missouri. So he made this transition. Team needed him to make the transition to linebacker, and he did. It wasn't really much sample size. You see the stats here. 10 games played, an average of 3.6 tackles a game. I hope my league mates are looking at it like this too, because they won't draft him. Only 1 a double-digit tackle game, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. But the outlier here is that the one game played, the one game with the double-digit tackles was the game that he started for EJ Speed. And technically he started many games, but this was his only game with 50% or more snaps. It was week 16 versus Tennessee. And in that game, 50% snaps, but he had 6 solo tackles and 4 assists. So he had a double-digit tackle game. That was it right there, week 16, on 50% of snaps. And as far as splash plays, he did have a tackle for loss in that game too. We all bought the hype, drank the Kool-Aid, and then he went back to the bench the next week. So let us down again. But that's our sample size, is one game. And, I was high on him back then too. But, looking at research, looking at articles over the season, it seemed to be that, his biggest thing, like I said, was the body build. He's a little bit smaller for a linebacker. I don't know if he can hold up the whole year. There was, I believe, 2 injuries. He was placed on IR Let me see if I have what the injuries were. Lower leg and shoulder injuries that he sustained last year. So he wasn't even a full-time player. He was placed on IR. I get it. We had that nice, juicy one game with 10 tackles. So I don't really know how to take Carles at this point. If you can make a case for him to be I'd say top, you can't put him over Josey, Jewell. You can't put him over Schwesinger. I'd say you could say a top 28, linebacker at this point. But to me, I don't know really. Is he going to be the starter? I understand it's crunch time now. We're ended June. Uh, you know, uh, Players are retiring because linebackers are retiring. C.J. Mosley just retired. He couldn't get a contract. He says, it's too late for me, and he's bowing out. So I mean, there's a couple good free agents out there. Eric Kendricks being at the top of the list, and I think that would really throw a wrench here. I don't think they're going to sign anybody big like that if they do make a vet move, but yeah, it's late in the game. Every day that passes by looks like Carles is going to start. The jury's still out on this guy. Of course, a lot of information we're missing as far as training camp, preseason. We're going to see him play hopefully in a couple preseason games. So a really enticing guy here, but somebody who I'm not going to really, overdraft right now. If he falls to me, he falls to me. We'll see how the preseason goes. And also, I just wanted to mention he was kind of bagged on for having a missed tackle rate that was high last season. Really, it was the last 3 games. The last 3 games, it was horrendous. His missed tackle rate jumped up to 16%. But overall, on the season as a whole, his missed tackle rate was 10%. And really, specifically in the first, I want to say 5 or 6 games, it was actually 5%. So, you read some articles just like I did, you'll see that one of the big issues with him is being the missed tackle rate. But really, for a team that collectively missed so many tackles, they kind of made him look good. So don't really worry about that from my perspective too much. I'm more worried about his body, the availability to start, and how many snaps is he going to be? EJ Speed playing close to 98, 100% of snaps, or are we going to see a phase in? So that's there's a lot going on here with Carles. I don't think he'll have a better season than EJ Speed had last year. EJ Speed was terrific. It was nothing short of LB2, solid LB2 for fantasy, and I don't think Carles. It's not fair to expect him to exceed that. Maybe week 4, week 5, we say a different story, but right now, don't expect it, but hope for it. Moving on to 34, Kenneth Murray, 26 years old. Decent year last year. If he would have had played a full season, I bet we'd be looking at him a little bit better right now. But as it stands, only 14 games played. Not really crummy average here, to be honest with you. 6.8 tackles per game for a inside linebacker, especially Kenneth Murray, somebody who we thought, he's going to get his shot here in Tennessee, and really he didn't, capitalize on it. Only 95 tackles on the season. 2 out of 14 games were double-digit games, so nothing to write home about there. 8 tackles for loss. Did have 3.5 sacks, which is nice. And he is on the Dallas Cowboys right now. So depending on his role, I do think that he's going to start, and I do think it's alongside Jack Sanborn. Keep in mind, Kendricks there, Overshown there last year. They were blitzing a lot through the A-gap. So these inside linebackers, they did, and I think there is an opportunity again for them to get sacked. So Kenneth Murray, I don't think 3.5 is too tough to beat. Don't think he's going to beat it, but 2 or 3 sacks, I think you can bank on here. Just keep in mind, Kenneth Murray is not a prolific tackler. Highest his career average or his career total highest is 107, and he hit that twice. So he's pretty consistent at it. Like to think if he played those other 3 games that he missed out on last year, he was going to eclipse that. But he wasn't going to blow it out of the water by any means. So let's just say a better landing spot for inside linebackers. I'm going to give him a max of 120. I'd say my claim is 115 tackles with 2 or 3 sacks. So Kenneth Murray, somebody who still, especially in deeper leagues, needs to be rostered, but not somebody who needs to be drafted with a heavy price tag. Moving on to 35, Demetrius Knight, rookie, another rookie here. He's replacing Germaine Pratt, which is a great task. Like I said, Germaine Pratt top 10 last year, but they are different players. I don't think you can exactly make that comparison. Demetrius Knight is, to me, not as so much of a volume tackler. He's, I think, a bigger player as it is, and I think he's more adept rushing the quarterback. I don't think he's going to, completely get put on that island there just as an edge rusher. Actually, I'm pretty certain he won't. It's looking like right now he is going to start next to Logan Wilson. And hey, look at the way that Logan Wilson, Pratt, Akeem Davis-Gaither, we'll get to in a little bit, how those guys banged, up in the AFC North. Not surprising to me. So Demetrius Knight, as a college senior last year in 13 games played, 6.4 tackles, nothing to write home about. Not the volume tackler, but when we look here at the splash plays, tackles for loss, 8 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, interception, 3 forced fumbles, 2 pass defense. So to me, I'm not going to say he's going to have equivalent of Germaine Pratt. That's not my prediction. My prediction is, as a rookie here, I think you're going to get a player like Tyrese Knight from Seattle. As far as fantasy, and that's all I care about. I'm not worried about real life. But as far as fantasy, Tyrese Knight, of course, did not play, over 80% of snaps, I believe, until later in the year. I do think that Demetrius Knight will have that advantage over Tyrese Knight. But Tyrese Knight was putting up, 7, 8, 9 tackles a game, hitting his stride. And I think that's what you're going to see here with Demetrius Knight. Don't expect too many double-digit tackle games. You're probably going to, my guess is maybe 7 to 8 tackles per game, which is a nice payday, and some splash plays in there, of course. So Demetrius Knight is somebody who's slept on. You got Schwesinger, the other rookie. He deserves the praise. I get it, but I think when we look at what happened last year with the linebackers in Cincy and where kind of spot Demetrius Knight is in right now, it's a good spot. It's really good. So I really respect him and hoping to keep quiet on him and draft him in a couple redraft leagues coming up. At 36, Micah McFadden. Micah McFadden was very solid, especially, if you were in big play scoring last year. He wasn't the most consistent tackler, but did have 5 out of 13 games that were double-digit tackle games, collectively 107 tackles, and perhaps the most, important stat here is that he did it in 14 games only. So if he would have had a complete 17 games with that same average of 7.6 tackles a game, he would have ended with 122. And then you throw the 3 sacks with it. Of course, maybe in 3 games, he would have got another sack. So to me, looking at, full game at this rate, 122 tackles and 3 sacks, that's like prime Frankie Luvu numbers right there. And of course, you haven't seen Frankie Luvu's name yet on this list, but I'm not a proponent of him. But still, that's what we were hoping to get when Frankie Luvu went to Washington. It hasn't panned out yet, but Micah McFadden, 100%. I'd rather have him than Frankie Luvu, no doubt in my mind. He is playing in a contract year. Bobby Okereke is back, which is not great news for McFadden, but we're not really, relying on Micah McFadden here, especially ranked this low, LB3. We're not really relying on him to carry our team and be a dominant linebacker. This is somebody who is either going to get, picked up in waivers in shorter leagues, or somebody who's, in deeper leagues. Someone is going to expect something from him, but they also know that Okereke is coming back, so you really can't expect the same, splits, the same ratios. I don't see him getting, north of 7.5 tackles per game, but maybe he adds, the games played. Hopefully he can stay healthy a full 17 games played and add to that tackle mark. Keep in mind, Micah McFadden is not only playing for a job here in a contract year for the Giants, but really for everyone else auditioning. So coming out of a small school, Indiana, smaller football school, I should say, he's trying to get his bag, right, and cash out. Who knows what happens after there, where he goes, if he makes good on the deal. But I think Micah McFadden, he's going to make good on this one. He's got a big payday ahead of him. So I am in on Micah McFadden. As you can see at 36, I'm not really paying too much for him. But I do think this wasn't a fluke year. I do think he's going to repeat something similar. Especially if Bobby Okereke, now we'll say if he gets hurt, big different story. Moving on to 37, but before I do, I just wanted to mention we are doing a promo right now with FastDraft. I'm sure you've heard of FastDraft. They're taking over Twitter, taking over fantasy right now, and for good reason. If you like playing best ball, if you like drafting fast, if you like doing both, even playing IDP, they have an IDP 6-player league in there, best ball. So go check out FastDraft and use my promo code +Johnny, and you will get a free $50 as a deposit match, up to $50. So you can put 10, 20, whatever, and you're going to get the match back. So why not throw 50 on it, get 50 back for $100, and check it out. Check out FastDraft. There's a reason why everyone's talking about it, and good chance to win some money. And who knows, you might even play me in a league. I'm in D up in their IDP league, so I'll be posted on there too. So come play with me. All right, moving on here to our 37 through 48. 37, I'm going to start it off with Troy Reeder. Troy Reeder, this is this is my favorite time when it gets gritty down here. A lot of fluctuation. I could have Troy Reeder at 37. I could have him at 47, anywhere in between. But here we go. Here's why he's at 37. So Troy Reeder, if you're an IDP vet like myself, he's always caught our eye in spot starts. He's had games where he's 8 tackles and then he goes back to the bench, 10 tackles. You're like, man, if he could do this full time. But there's a reason why he's not doing it full time, because he's not really great in pass coverage. There's flaws to his game. He's a little bit slower. But when we talk about volume tackler, Troy Reeder has always been that, and hopefully has his chance to continue that this season. So he started weeks 1 through 6 last year, was healthy, things were going well, 46 total tackles, which was a good pace, right? That's almost 8 tackles a game. He was going to be, talked about as a waiver wire darling, and all of a sudden he has a hamstring injury, and that pretty much inhibits him the whole year. Then here we come with Christian Roseboom, who kind of steps up then, ends up with 135 tackles in 2024. So kind of what could have been, I think, for Troy Reeder. Keep in mind, this is not a zero, splash play guy. This is not all or nothing tackles. I think he only has 5 sacks to his name, but he did have a career high 3 sacks in 2020 in a part-time role. So to me, Christian Roseboom, looking at him is a fine example to say, 135 tackles if Troy Reeder plays that 16 or 17 games. Absolutely. I do think that's absolutely achievable. The next guy I have on here is, obviously one of them is going to hit. Their teammates, maybe both have a nice year, but if I'm going to pick one of these guys, Troy Reeder or Omar Speights, I'm still going with Troy Reeder. I understand he could get hurt again. Anyone could get hurt. But as long as if Troy Reeder is not out there, I think if he gets hurt, then Omar Speights' upside is much, much higher. But as long as they're both out there to start the year, I'm taking the 30-year-old. I'm taking Troy Reeder. 6 games, average 7.7 tackles. Like we said, when he gets that opportunity, he makes good on tackles. And what else could you ask for the linebacker? Omar Speights, as far as he goes, I'm in on him. I'm in on the potential. Zero defensive snaps until week 7. So we look at these numbers, right? And he says 17 games played. Really, it was 10 games played, right? So nice clean average of 6.7 tackles a game. If you take that into consideration, 66 tackles from week 7 to week 17. Not setting the world on fire, but at the same time, a solid rookie. And that was with Roseboom taking all those tackles away. 0 games played, over 80% snaps for Omar Speights. So take it with a grain of salt. 2 ways, right? Number one, we're looking at this and saying, wow, he did 66 tackles in 6 games, or 67 tackles in 6 games, and he wasn't even playing north of 80%. Very impressive, nonetheless. I do expect if those those snap numbers increase, the tackles will increase, no doubt. But at the same time, who's to say that the snaps will increase? They brought in Nate Landman. I like Nate Landman a lot from the Falcons. They drafted Chris Paul Jr. I'm not saying either of these guys should be bumped ahead of Omar Speights right now on the depth chart. Maybe they're even fighting Troy Reeder for a spot on the depth chart. But still, you got a lot of names. Keep in mind Omar Speights. He was still an undrafted free agent last year. So I don't think really you can go into week 1 and have Omar Speights as your LB2 and say, like, I love my linebacking core. I think this is a player that you want to let figure it out, see what happens in week 1, week 2, what kind of snaps they're playing, what kind of tackle output he produces before you really hop into him. Or you might get something like Trenton Simpson last year. Trenton Simpson, yeah, you don't want that. So Omar Speights, I think, is a good example of how risky it could be rolling with a guy like this at the beginning of the year. But again, the dividends could be huge. We'll see in the preseason what we hear on Speights. Moving on to 39, one of my favorite former linebackers here. I'm saying former because I'm not really feeling him anymore. Burned me last year. Cody Barton, 28 years old, played a full slate last year, all 17 games for a, to me, putrid average of 6.2 tackles a game, only 106 tackles. Only one of those games were double-digit tackle games, 1.5 sack, 2 picks, forced fumble, great. Bottom line is we roster you for the tackles, Mr. Barton. 2023, where did that go? 2023, Cody Barton had over half his games, 7 out of 13 were double-digit tackle games. Again, only one in 2024, and I don't understand it. This was a guy I hyped so much. It was a waiver wire pickup, number one of the week for linebackers for me. I touted him heavy. Alex Singleton went down with an ACL. I thought Cody Barton was going to be back in there getting 10 or more tackles more times than not, but just wasn't the case. And it was extremely impressive because it's not like they had uh, you know Dre Greenlaw there as the second linebacker. They had Justin Sternard, who was not getting many tackles himself. So maybe looking at the defense themselves as a whole, Brandon Jones, played excellent last year. Maybe he kind of took some tackles away. It was a weird defensive dynamic. They were probably one of the best, if not the best, defense in the league. So Cody Barton, do I kind of forgive him? Sure, but do I think it's going to click here in Tennessee? No, I don't. If he couldn't do it for Denver last year with no Alex Singleton playing next to Justin Sternard, I don't think he's going to do it in Tennessee. Um, Keep in mind, there's other guys who, are up and coming. James Williams, Otis Reese, Cedric Gray here in Tennessee. So they're going to probably muddle it around a lot too. Again, not a guy you might pick him up in week 2 and rock with him, and he might give you 8 tackles a game. He might be back on the map. But again, I am not picking Cody Barton or drafting him to start week 1, and especially if I want to win week 1. If it's not important to me, go ahead, stash him, start him, whatever. But if you're trying to win week 1, I wouldn't be confident starting Cody Barton out there right away. Moving on to number 40, Dre Greenlaw. I have him very low, I'll admit. But, to me, I have to see something go right for Dre Greenlaw now. First off, 2 games played last year. The first game, 8 tackles. Things were all good. But then how the saying goes, it was all good just a week ago because the next week, on about, I think it was 6 defensive snaps. I think he got hurt in that game. Only 1 tackle. And then, was done for the last game or 2. That's the last we saw of Dre Greenlaw. So we were expecting that eight tackle pace to continue. Seems like he regressed after that 2 game or one and then some game that he did play. Right now, as it is, just more salt in the wound. He is listed as a starter, but when will he be able to start? He tore a quad additionally, so he's coming back from an Achilles injury. Now he tore a quad in April. Reports are saying he should be good to go for training camp, but should isn't really putting me at ease at this point. I'm assuming even Alex Singleton, the both of them, I don't think either of them we're going to see in the preseason. Both coming off major surgeries, major injuries. So to me, I understand the hype. I understand who he was in San Fran. I understand, that him and Greenlaw and Singleton could be the best fantasy in real life, 1-2 unit as far as linebacking pairing in the league. But I don't know if I really am buying into his potential right now. He has the potential to, hit 120 tackles, sure, especially if he's playing close to all the games. But again, I'm not banking on it. And keep in mind, somebody who's not going to make my top 48, I don't think anybody's, but Jonah Ellis. I mean, you got 2 guys here. I just want to give a shout out to Jonah Ellis. You got 2 guys coming off of big injuries, ACL, Achilles. There's a good chance that Jonah Ellis, we might, he got moved back to inside linebacker per the coaches. So there's a good chance we do see him at some point. Don't think he's going to take away Alex Singleton's job, but this might be somebody who Jonah Ellis could be a waiver wire find if Dre Greenlaw cannot, keep his health together. So not really investing too much on Dre. Upside's huge. Sure, it's going to be a value pick for somebody, but I'm just not putting my eggs in that basket right now. Moving on to 41, Tyrel Dodson. Tyrel Dodson, he's ranked low here, but he could easily ascend. As it stands right now in minicamp, he was listed in practice as the green dot, middle linebacker for the Dolphins. I mean, they have Jordan Brooks there as well. Jordan Brooks is going to get his. I believe he's probably going to have 140 tackles, a couple sacks as well. But Tyrel Dodson, I doubted him last year. He was like a preseason darling for a lot of analysts. I just didn't believe it. I said there wasn't enough sample size. I didn't think he was that good in starts that he did play. Besides, I think it was 2023 towards the end, he had some good games. I get it, but before that, it was nothing. So I really was doubting him. I really don't regret it. Tyrel Dodson, he really didn't do much besides give you headaches with all the trades he was involved in. Started off hot, but other than that, really was a no-show later. But still ended with 107 tackles. 4 games were 10 or more tackle games, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 3 interceptions. So 107 tackles in a full season is nothing to be happy about. But obviously the splash plays were more than there. 3 picks. And those 3 all came with Miami, by the way. So after he got traded to Miami, all 3 of those interceptions came. So Tyrel Dodson, the wheels are kind of up for him right now. He's on the climb up, the incline. So if I can get him this late at 41, I definitely am interested in him. And not really much bad to say about him at this point. I do think Miami has a bad team this year. Again, they're going to get run down their throat, I think, quite a good bit. So Tyrel Dodson and Jordan Brooks, I 100% still prefer Jordan Brooks, but I do think that Tyrel Dodson, even if he loses some splash plays here, can still end up with about 115, 120 tackles. So Tyrel Dodson, don't forget about him as well. Moving on to 42, we have Alex Anzalone, the old vet here at 30. Definitely a down year. Wasn't even just because he missed games. He only played 10 games, but the tackles per game, 6.3. That's not, that's not going to cut it either. And I know he's not, somebody who's having 8 to 10 tackles a game, but we need more than that from Alex Anzalone. This wasn't even on pace with his career average. Looking at Anzalone, I have 2023, that was 2 years ago, 129 tackles and 3 sacks. 2022, 125 tackles and 1.5 sacks. So the fact that he was averaging, 6.3 tackles, he was due for some regression anyway. He would have ended at full slate at 107 tackles, and that would have been a huge disappointment for him. In looking at the sacks, only 1 sack. Of course, he probably would have had more in 7 more games played. But Alex Anzalone broke that arm. That was why that's kind of a blessing in disguise. It's not like he had ACL, Achilles injury. It was a broken arm. He's healed now. Seems to be good to go. That's what he's saying. So Alex Anzalone, for someone who, you're trying to scrape the barrel here, not get duped over on week 1, try to find somebody who can get you 10 points. I think Alex Anzalone is a great target for you, especially later in drafts. After coming off injuries, he's definitely slept on right now. And I'm not a big proponent of Jack Campbell's going to set the world on fire either. So Alex Anzalone, a fine LB2 on his team and a fine LB3 for your fantasy team. Moving on to 43, I am excited about this guy, Akeem Davis-Gaither, only 27 years old, got his shot last year for Cincinnati, of course, and it wasn't a full-time 17 games played. Of course, the numbers here say 17 games played. They say only 4.8 tackles a game, 3 out of 17 double-digit tackles a game. That's accurate, at least. 4 tackles for loss, no sacks, 1 pick, 1 forced fumble, and 4 passes defense. Now, that's what the internet tells you, surface level. Let's do some digging. Akeem Davis-Gaither, when Logan Wilson, who was, again, like I said, Logan Wilson, 8 or more tackles in all 11 games he played. So Akeem Davis-Gaither picks up the slack in starting week 13 through week 18. So he started 6 games. He ended with 58 tackles, just under 10 tackles a game. Extremely valuable role there. If you were in IDP playoffs, Akeem Davis-Gaither from last year, what he accomplished last year down the stretch. But yeah, 6 games played, 58 tackles, a forced fumble, 2 passes defensed, 2 tackles for loss, 3 out of the 6 games, half of those were double-digit tackle games. So we take, Akeem Davis-Gaither. He is no longer in Cincinnati. We take him to the desert in Arizona. He did get 2 years, $10 million, so that's starter money. So right now, I do believe he will be the starting middle linebacker for Arizona. Now, keep in mind, I also am a proponent of a young guy that I think will eventually take over there, Cody Simon. I don't think it's going to be exactly week one, so I do think Akeem Davis-Gaither, as long as we hear the affirmation he's going to be the starter in training camp, it's not even close. I'd rather have him so much more than who's their backup? Why am I drawing Mac Wilson? Not their backup, their second linebacker. Mac Wilson to me is unrosterable. No leagues am I touching him. Akeem Davis-Gaither, he could be 150 in the ranks, and Mac Wilson could be 20. I'm still taking Akeem Davis-Gaither all day. The only way I don't is if I hear Cody Simon is wearing the green dot and Akeem Davis-Gaither is not on the field. And I don't think that's the case, at least to start the season off. So definite value here. I definitely think this is going to be a guy who, especially if you're trying to save money and not put in much investment in IDP, this is the perfect example of who you want to get right here. So we're going to hear a lot about him, I'm sure, in the preseason. I know you'll hear more about him from me. So let's move on to our number 44 player, and that is Devin Lloyd. And Devin Lloyd is very polarizing here. I don't know really what to do with him in fantasy. I don't know many that do, right? So Devin Lloyd in 2024, only 113 tackles in 16 games, an clean average of 6, but that's pretty bad for Devin Lloyd, pretty bad, very bad for linebackers. Only 2 out of 16 games were double-digit tackle games. 7 tackles for loss, decent. Finally broke the seal with his first 2 sacks of his career in this year, so that was something to, be happy about. Did have an interception, did have a forced fumble, and did have 4 passes defense. So the splash plays were there. We weren't getting anything from Devin Lloyd before, but now we did. But it was at the expense of snaps and tackles. So I don't really know how to take Devin Lloyd right now. Again, he was decent, 6+ tackles in 12 out of 16 games played. That's decent. That you have a decent floor, but the upside was certainly not there. And one thing about it, I still do think he is a high upside linebacker. It's just, what are the snaps going to be? Now, he's in a contract year. Devin Lloyd's in a contract year. They have Ventrell Miller, who seemingly played just as well as Lloyd last year. And they can let Lloyd go and just, roll with Ventrell Miller. So if Miller wasn't there, I'd be a lot higher than I am now on Devin Lloyd. But I think this is another muddy linebacker situation where who knows? In week one, Devin Lloyd could start for 25% of the snaps, and then Ventrell Miller's in. We just don't know that right now. The only guy I'm endorsing right now in Jacksonville is Foye. So I'm just putting Devin Lloyd here for the tribute of the potential. He definitely could ascend to the top 36 real quick, but I don't want to forget about him. Definitely not someone I'm banking on, though. Moving on to 45, Ivan Pace. Ivan Pace, somebody who was in my top 20s last year, but obviously cannot get it on the field enough in Minnesota. They don't play their second linebacker. Actually, they play the second linebacker dead last in the whole NFL. So that's going to do it right there for Ivan Pace. But I do think, especially in big play scoring, or if he plays a full season this year, I do think there's a place in fantasy for Ivan Pace, and I think he's actually on the up and coming when it comes to those splash plays. We look at his stats last year. The stats don't tell the whole truth. 11 games played, average of 6.5 tackles, which, I mean, if you're, Bobby Wagner or, Foye Oluokun, 6.5 tackles a game is nothing. But when you're Ivan Pace isn't really like especially as the second linebacker, isn't a volume tackler. You're mostly here for the splash plays, the sacks, the forced fumbles, which he did get. 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, interception, pass defense. Ivan Pace was solid. It's just that I believe he actually played less percent of snaps in last year than he did in 2023. 2023, He totaled 102 tackles, 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, an interception, and that was, of course, his rookie breakout year. And he played 62% of snaps. Coming to last year, 2024, only 58% of snaps. And of course, we did see the upside, kind of like a Jack Sanborn effect when Blake Cashman missed 2 games. Ivan Pace, all of a sudden, there it is. He played his 100% of snaps, and go figure, don't you know, he balled out. 23 combined tackles and a sack in just those 2 games. So Ivan Pace, if he gets that shot, if there's ever a Blake Cashman injury, this guy's like a top 12 linebacker immediately. But until then, you're going to have to kind of wait, hang on to him, waste a spot. But keep in mind, at his 6.5 tackle average, if he would have played that full 17 games, he would have ended with 111 tackles. And then you add the 3 sacks on it, 111 tackles and 3 sacks. Boom, that's Frankie Luvu you were hoping to get coming from Carolina to Washington, right? So I would prefer, definitely, like I have him ranked here, I would prefer Ivan Pace over Frankie Luvu, who I just mentioned. And let's talk about Frankie Luvu for a minute. If you know me, if you played fantasy with me, you know I've never been a Luvu guy. He had a nice story. He had a nice breakout there, especially coming from the Jets. Had a little breakout there, but when he went to Carolina, mostly that's how we know him. But again, a lot of people jumped on him the year after his breakout. I said, go ahead. He's not my type of player. I'm not playing linebackers for these sacks, although it's nice to have. It's just too volatile. And Frankie Luvu, he's going to get his sacks, don't get me wrong. But the tackles are just too inconsistent for him. So when we look at Frankie Luvu, he had 125 tackles in 2023 for Carolina, and that's when people popped the top for him. It was like, oh my God, this guy's going to get 150 tackles and have 5 to 7 sacks, and we just got lost in the sauce. And I didn't bite on that at all, rightfully so. I always cheer myself on about Frankie Luvu. Never been a volume tackler. I'm not a proponent of him. Go ahead, chase his breakout year all you want. Even when I go look at that 2023 breakout year, I told you the Yahoo League that I tackle heavy scoring Yahoo League I have. Germaine Pratt last year was 10th. That holds a lot of weight. 2023, Frankie Luvu's breakout year in tackle heavy. Frankie Luvu was 21st as far as linebackers. So he had to break out to hit 21. So I'm off it. I'm never going to be on it again. I mean, unless he really switches to the middle linebacker role and forgoes the sacks. But is this type of hybrid player? Much rather have Ivan Pace. I'm not really in on Frankie Luvu at all. So this is kind of a hot take. I know you'll probably see him in 20s in people's rankings, but go ahead, keep toting his name, and I'm just going to keep doing what's he's consistently done is be fluctuating on the stats. Of course, like we said, the sacks are always going to be there. He's going to get 5 or 6 sacks. That's fine and dandy. And maybe in tackle, a big play scoring, he gets a little elevation. But if you're playing in tackle heavy leagues, and you're searching for the tackles, Frankie Luvu, just take him off your board, to be honest with you. Moving on to 47, another guy who I really don't like talking about, but we're deep here. So Tremaine Edmunds, I mean, we're looking at a guy who's in a contract year. We're at 47, this low. Give me his 110 tackles. That'll do for here. We're in LB4 territory. So Tremaine Edmunds, again, if you can get somebody who can get you 110 tackles, a sack, maybe a couple pass defense, a couple tackles for loss, and he's pretty good, getting interceptions in his career too. So Tremaine Edmunds, I don't think he's going to, outproduce TJ Edwards. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that in a contract year, again, next year might be re-ups with the Bears, might be on a different team, might be the Cardinals, who knows. So Tremaine Edmunds, I think if we're this low, definitely deserves some credit. And finally, last person on my list, stats won't point you here at all, but just don't forget about Junior Colson. Diane Henley was a terrific stud for IDP last year. We thought it was going to be Junior Colson. Had all this hype, but he had, I think, appendicitis and another injury too. So Junior Colson just couldn't really stay healthy. It's not that he, didn't grade out well or the team pulled him. They still have all the confidence in the world in him. John Harbaugh says that he is healthy, ready to go, flying around. So that's what really caught my eye about Junior Colson. And this is a guy who was, talked about as being the number one rookie in dynasty leagues last year for linebackers. I didn't quite buy that, but still, the jury's still out on him, and he could have a very, fine sophomore year. And another thing is, Diane Henley was the tackle getter there, playing the middle, but he's so great in pass coverage. So maybe if Junior Colson can get right, and I think maybe he slides into the role that's seeing all the tackles. So that's what's worrying me for Henley a little bit, and what's keeping Junior Colson on the front burner of my mind. And guys know I always like to drop some honorable mentions. So looking at these rankings, I just kind of drag and drop them. But there were three guys who I wanted to add on the list. I just ran out of space, and they just didn't break the mold for me. Jihad Campbell, I know he's a hot topic. People ask me about that in the comments. I do think he has all the talent in the world, and this is a high volume tackler player. 117 tackles in 13 games, 5 double-digit tackle games, as well as somebody who can get the quarterback, 5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Jihad Campbell, that's fine and dandy. To me, I just personally think he's going to start off on the PUP list. So if you can, stash him on the PUP list or afford to go without him for 4 games, then that's a fine pick, and he has a good chance to rebound and after that. But you're also looking at complications with the Kobe Dean. Who knows when he's coming back? We know Zach Bond's not going anywhere, so it's like, are they going to play Jihad Campbell for 100% of snaps as it is, and then are they going to play Jihad Campbell for 100% of snaps when the Kobe Dean gets back? That's a lot to ask for. So Jihad Campbell, I'm just fading him this year. Who knows? He could have a setback in his injury himself. So I'm just taking him off my board. Not interested. Unless you're in a super deep league, I don't think he really needs to be drafted. Just be on top of it. If you hear in week 3 or week 2 that he's doing well, he's going to come back off the PUP list, or he doesn't eventually need the PUP list, different story. But as it stands right now, I'm not counting on him. Next one is Henry 202. I do like this guy. I do like Henry a lot down there. Just the problem is, at the end of the season, he was balling out. He had, I think, 2 double-digit tackle games the last 3 or 4 games. It's just, is he going to get those snaps again? I mean, Azeez Al-Shaair was suspended, hurt, off the team at that point. There was a lot of complications going around. This is still a messy linebacking group here in Houston. I don't know if it's going to be Christian Harris, Henry 202. They're going to switch, spots. They're going to switch snap counts. This is just messy. I don't want really any part of it. But if, week 1 we were told that Henry 2020 is going to become a starter, then yeah, I definitely, and especially in deeper leagues, would pay note to him. So I hopefully it's Henry 2020 who is next to Azeez Al-Shaair. I think he's, at least we know what we're getting from tackles here. 7 tackles a game over the 15 games played. He would have had 120 just about if he would have played the full season at that rate. So fine tackler. And, we don't need the splash plays. He did get a sack and a half, an interception, forced fumble. That's great. But Henry 2020 is a fine tackler, and that's what we're here for. And finally, Servassier Dennis out of Pittsburgh, going to be his 3rd year for Tampa Bay. I just wanted to point out, don't forget about him. I'm not saying he's going to come out and light the world on fire, but we're still talking about a guy who's in their mid-20s, 25 years old. He played 4 games. Google will tell you he played 4 games, but really it was 3 and then got hurt, I think like 5 snaps in. So really, let's look at these numbers from a 3-game perspective. 3 games played, 22 combined tackles. That's pretty rosterable. That's pretty serviceable, actually. That's what, 7 1/3 tackle a game. And then you look at the double-digit tackle games. One of those 3 were a double-digit tackle game. So really, a third of his games were double digits, and he was getting 7 1/3 tackle a game. If he would have done that for 17 games, we're ranking him a lot higher. So don't think he's going to sustain that. And a big thing with Dennis, and as far as his production, is even though he had 7 1/3 tackle average those 3 games, he wasn't even sniffing north of 50% of snaps. So could go 2 ways. It's not really settling to hear that, but at the same time, if they do decide to play him more, I do think he could make good on that bet. Just not somebody who you want to start the year off with and put it on the line with. So we got a good blend here, 25 through 48. I want to thank all you viewers and listeners who came back and supported me for part 2 here. If you missed part 1, check it out. I will have it right after this video ends, and we will see you next time on IDP Plus Podcast.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.